Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1260B and today's date is April 21st, 2017 and the title of the episode is It Has All Come Down to This, the Last Battle Between Good and Evil. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now it looks like the news of Trump and Russia colluding, that has died down. Once Trump fired the 59 Tomahawk missiles into Syria, everything kind of switched and changed. Since that period of time, it looks like the deep state, they're not too happy with the way things are going because they wanted him to invade North Korea already. They wanted him to invade Syria already. Now, many people are writing into me and they're saying that, you're wrong. Trump is part of the deep state. Maybe he is. Maybe he is working for the deep state. Maybe he's sold out. Maybe they have something on him and they're forcing him to do all this. If that is the case, guess what? We're all in big trouble right now. That means we are going to war. That means your cousin, your brother, your children, they will be in the next war. That means the central bankers are going to stay in control. That means the deep state is going to stay in control. That's what all that means. If he has really sold out, and what we're seeing right now is him giving control to the deep state and him actually doing absolutely nothing now, the country is completely lost. And there is no hope. That's what that really means right now. I mean, I'm hoping that's not what it is. I'm still seeing signs that maybe something else is in the works, and we'll discuss that a little bit later. But we can see that if the deep state is satisfied and has something on him, and he's obeying them and doing what he wants, why still go forward with the Russian collusion investigation? Why has the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence call Comey, Clapper, Rogers, Brennan, and Yates to testify on Russia? Why go through all this? Because they're not finished with him yet. They're still trying to get to him. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to use Yates, who was fired by Trump for refusing to back his original travel ban. And Yates was expected to provide testimony that would conflict with the comments from the White House staff. So they're still going after Trump. That hasn't ended yet. But we'll talk more about what is happening with Trump, the deep state, and what is going on. YouTube, on the other hand, they're looking to teach teenagers and teach them what is fake and what is real news. And we can see that a lot of these social media platforms, they feel that it's their job to teach the young what is real and what is fake. Which again, how do they even know what's real and what is fake? And actually, it's not up to them to teach our young. But this is what's happening today. They're trying to convince people that this is fake because we're telling you it's fake, and this is real because we're telling you it's real. But we found that no, a lot of these things don't make sense. The New York Times put out a simple picture of the Patriots in front of the White House. Now, they compared it to Obama's picture when he had the Patriots at the White House. And they pointed out that, look, there are more people standing on the stairs, and in Trump's picture, there's no one standing on the stairs. Now, that story circulated. Now, if the alternative media or anyone was out there saying this is completely fake, phony, and false, that would have been flagged as fake news because the New York Times is a legitimate news source. That would have been real. But we come to find out, and thanks to the Patriots, they actually called out the New York Times and said, no, you are reporting fake news. The staff is now sitting in chairs on the lawn. But you see how this fake news thing is not going to work. The legitimate source was spewing fake news. So how is YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and the rest going to teach the world what's fake and what's real? They don't even know. Let the people decide. Let the people do their own research. Let the people look and use common sense. They don't want people using common sense. They don't want people thinking anymore. This is why they're pushing this. Now we see that the U.S. is preparing to arrest Julian Assange, and we can see Mike Pompeo. He is out there saying that we got to get Julian Assange. Now this is coming from the propaganda news sources like CNN, New York Times, and the rest. And we can see the deep state, they don't want him out there. They don't want him looking into things. They don't want him reporting on things. They don't want him showing people what's really going on. And we can see that the deep state, well, they're pushing their agenda to get him out of the picture. And we can see this is a last-ditch effort for the deep state because the walls, everything is closing in around them, and they're trying to get rid of all these different things to try to stay and keep afloat of all of what is happening right now. And Julian Assange is out there saying, listen, we do the same thing as the New York Times, CNN, but we're actually telling the truth. We put our information out there. We show people what's going on. We publish the material just like they do. And we do the exact same thing. The only difference is we're not controlled by the CIA. We're not controlled by the neocons and the rest. And this is what they don't like. Now, we had a shooting in Paris, and the individual who did the shooting, he was known to the police. He has been arrested, and his name is Karim Sherfi. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. He was born on December 31st, 1977, is a French national, lived with his mother in eastern Paris suburb, and he just happened to have a document in his pocket after he was shot, showed that he supported the Islamic State. Now, you can tell this was a complete setup. It's just very coincidental that it happened right before the elections. Now, do you think this was done on purpose? Of course it was. And we can see that the analyst who predicted Trump's rise to the presidency has also predicted that LePen was going to win in France. And we can see right now that the deep state, the neocons, the central banks, they don't want LePen. Don't want her at all. And it looks like they were trying to use this false flag event to maybe cancel the elections because we saw and we heard Francois Fillon saying that, you know what? The elections, they should be canceled after this terror attack. Of course, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to stop what is about to happen. Now, Obama, he decided to get involved and publicly throw his support behind left-wing establishment candidate Emmanuel Macron in France. And it looks like he's altering the elections. He's tampering with the elections by publicly throwing his support for him. Well, I don't know how well it's going to work because he endorsed Hillary Clinton, and that didn't go over too well. But isn't this what they blamed Russia into doing, that they were backing Trump? Isn't Obama doing the same thing where he's backing Emmanuel Macron? It seems like it's the same exact thing. Now, Trump was out there, and he says the Paris attack will have a big effect on the election. Now, what he's really saying is that LePen is going to win. And we can see right now the people are looking at the situation saying, you know something? We want LePen. We're done with this. It's just another terrorist attack. We want this all to stop. Because what is she talking about? Stopping immigration. What is she talking about? Removing the sanctions with Russia. What is she talking about? Not getting involved with Ukraine or any other place. And we can see right now, this is exactly what is going on around the world. There is a movement right now, and things are rapidly changing. Now, out in North Korea, we can see that the propaganda, well, it is being pushed very hard. And we can see that there's a video out there showing North Korea bombing San Francisco. And this was during Kim Il-sung's 105th birthday last weekend. And it shows them having this party, and the orchestra was playing and the screens behind them. We see this missile that is launched, and it supposedly hit San Francisco, and then we see the burning of the flag. Now, again, was this video real? Was this put together? Was this using a special technique to put something else on the screen in the background? Because this is a very strange thing to have during a birthday party. Usually when you're celebrating someone, you're usually showing pictures of that individual, their accomplishments, and things like that. But we can see that was put out there. Where did it come from? Who supplied it? And we can see right now that something doesn't seem right with it. Now, because of what is happening in North Korea, because they were very afraid of April 25th, because China has warned that April 25th is the highest probability day for North Korean nuclear test. We also understand that Gotham Shield, which we're going to discuss a little bit later, well, that test here in New York and New Jersey is happening on the 24th, 25th, and 26th, which coincides to what North Korea is doing on the 25th. So this is very interesting, but because of this April 25th date, we see that South Korea is on heightened alert. The propaganda news media is saying that Russia is building their troops on the border of North Korea. Again, we're seeing no other signs of this except coming from the corporate media. So they said this about China, not even sure that this is really true. See no signs of it from anywhere else except from the corporate media. So right off the bat, that tells me that something is not right. Now, Trump was out there and he says that the Chinese effort to rein in the menace of North Korea on Thursday, well, it's going very well. And he said there are some very unusual moves that have been made over the last 2 or 3 hours. And he was confident that Chinese President Xi Jinping would try very hard to pressure Beijing's ally and neighbor North Korea over its nuclear and missile programs. Now, what did he mean by this? It looks like they're working something out. That's what this tells me, that there's another plan behind the scenes that is going on. And we have to remember, North Korea runs a drug operation, opium. And this is in competition with the CIA's Afghanistan opium trade. And they don't want competition. And we can see right now that this is there's many other reasons, but this is one of the reasons why they've been trying to get into North Korea. Now, if North Korea does become a nuclear state, it'll be much more difficult to get into that country because they don't like countries that have nuclear weapons. They don't have regime change in many of those countries that have nuclear weapons. So they want to make sure that North Korea doesn't reach that phase, because if they do, they will not be able to have regime change. They will not be able to invade like they did with Somalia, Sudan, Libya, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria. And this is why they're trying so hard right now, because 1, they know the economy's coming down. 2, they want to get this war started. If they can get in there and have regime change and take control of the opium, that would make them very happy also. So we see a lot going on right now. Now, Trump did come out and say that Iran was complying with the nuclear deal, the P5+1 nuclear deal. And then he said that Iran might be violating the spirit of the nuclear deal. Now, we don't know what that actually means, because we can take this in many different ways. But he did say it was complying, and then he said the spirit of the deal is not being abided by. Now, was the spirit of the deal that if they allowed Iran to operate their nuclear facilities and have inspections, Iran would use the dollar on their oil, and they're not going along with the spirit of the deal? Because everything else they're complying with. It's actually the U.S. which is in violation of the spirit of the deal. So what did he really mean by that? We're not really sure, but it doesn't mean that Iran is not complying. Now, Trump made an interesting statement on Libya. If he's part of the deep state, and I'm not taking his side where he's completely not with the deep state, I'm looking at indicators, and I'm getting a lot of emails thrown at me saying that, I can't believe you lost all credibility, how dare you say this, he's with the deep state, look at the evidence. Well, I'm looking at all sides right now, and I'm not discounting that maybe he is with the deep state. I'm right in the middle. I'm looking at both sides. And I need to have that 1% hope. Because Donald Trump came out and he made a remark and he said something about Libya. Now, we know the U.S. has been trying to get into Libya. They created this UN-backed government that the people actually didn't want. They're flying missions into Libya, bombing the people who want the UN-backed government out of there. There's many different factions, different tribes within Libya. They don't want to be managed. Trump said that the U.S. has no role in Libya right now. He says, we have enough on our plate. He said, let Libya decide what they want to do. Which, again, I find very interesting, because if he's part of the deep state, he would have never made that statement, because he was meeting with the Italian Prime Minister, and the Italian Prime Minister wanted the U.S. to maintain its critical role in the country and help build political consensus. And Trump is saying, no, we should not be involved there, which is very interesting. So let's take that and other things so far and see how this all fits. Now, China says it's going to sign an Iran-Iraq reactor deal because they were involved in the P5+1 deal, along with Britain, France, Russia, and others. And they're saying, yes, we can go in there, we can help them, they can be inspected, and we're just creating nuclear power. And if China is in there and Russia is in there helping them with their nuclear reactors, it's going to be even more difficult to say that Iran is creating a nuclear weapon and they violated the P5+1 deal. Now we see the Syrian government, they are saying that Jordan is planning to deploy troops on its territory in coordination with the United States to go after Assad. And Syria is saying that Jordan is flying missions without the permission of Syria, and they're not necessarily hitting the Islamic State targets. Well, we know that Jordan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Israel, United States, UK, they were never going after the Islamic State because they created the Islamic State. They funded the Islamic State. They helped the Islamic State. So right now, Syria is looking at what Jordan is doing right now and saying they are in violation of international law and they have the right to attack Jordan. And if you notice, the Syrian government has held back actually firing upon other countries who are flying inside of a sovereign country. Think about it. In the United States, if we had Russia or China flying their jets inside the United States, do you think the United States would just let them fly around and bomb and never attack? And Syria has really restrained itself and has not gone after any of these countries. Even Russia is saying, listen, you don't have any right to be here. We do because we were invited in. Now, Israel, they said Assad's forces still have chemical weapons. Now, of course, they have no evidence of this. Of course, they're building this up. And of course, Pentagon Chief Jim Mattis was visiting Israel. And now all of a sudden Mattis is saying that yes, Syria has retained chemical weapons, even though the United States signed off on it, Russia signed off on it, UN signed off on it. That shows that Assad has no chemical weapons. Well, they're doing this most likely to push the way for a new false flag. Will it work? We don't know. But we know something that's very interesting is that the Western powers, they are blocking the OPCW from doing an on-site probe to see if there's chemical weapons. They do not want them there. And of course, Lavrov is slamming this and saying that, listen, the allegations of Damascus using chemical weapons is a ploy for regime change. And he just came out and said it. And Russia is urging Western powers to allow the OPCW in, and also saying, listen, let's forget about Assad. Let's go after Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State. Now, Israel decided to launch missiles into Syria. Now, Syria has never attacked Israel. And they decided to attack Syria once again. Now, David Steele, a 20-year Marine Corps intelligence officer and the second highest ranking civilian in the U.S. Marine Corps intelligence, he's a former CIA clandestine services case officer, and he said the following: most terrorists are false flag terrorists or are created by our own security services. In the United States, every single terrorist incident we have had has been a false flag or has been an informant pushed by the FBI. In fact, we now have citizens taking out restraining orders against the FBI informants that are trying to incite terrorism. He says we've become a lunatic asylum, and that is true. It's been so crazy, and we've been pointing out that each one of these things, well, they fit the same exact pattern every single time, and the FBI always knows about the person. The person always usually ends up dead. They usually have a license, a passport that falls out or is in the person's pocket that always says, I'm part of the Islamic State. Now, coming up August 24th and 25th, there's a joint operation codenamed Gotham Shield. And the premise of this is a simulated crisis which there's going to be a detonation of a 10,000-ton nuclear device. Now, this is a simulation, and it's supposed to mimic an electromagnetic pulse caused by the detonation of this device, and it will cause the disabling of most telephones. It will disable the internet and other electronic devices in a 20-kilometer radius around the detonation site. And there's many different agencies that are involved in this. And this is the U.S. Department of Energy, Department of Defense, Domestic Nuclear Detection Office, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Federal Emergency Management Agency, Northern Command, and many others. And we've seen this before. We've seen it during 9/11, where there was a drill going on prior to this. We saw Sandy Hook. There was a drill going on prior and during the shooting at that point. We saw during the Boston bombing, there was also another drill happening at the same time. So this is something that we need to look at, and something that I mentioned early in the report, where China is warning of a nuclear test around April 25th, which are they telegraphing that there's going to be a false flag or something's going to occur? Maybe. And this is something that we need to watch right now in this area. Now, I wanted to talk about Trump and what people actually believed he was going to do. And there's a lot of controversy around this. And we're just trying to look at things and make people think. And it doesn't matter if you think he's part of the deep state or you don't think he's part of the deep state, as long as we're thinking about it and talking about it. Now, when he got into office, he said he was going to drain the swamp. He was going to do all these different things. And you have to put yourself in his shoes, or anyone going into the White House, where there's different factions that have been there for a very long time. Going into the White House and saying, listen, I'm just going to change everything right off the bat. Do you really think that's possible? I don't. I think it would be a very tough battle. I think in the beginning he tried this, and it wasn't going well. And I think what happened was he had to change tactics, and he couldn't really tell anybody. This is why he's been flying down to Mar-a-Lago, because he has privacy. He knows that's secure. He knows that he can work with individuals instead of having all these leaks. I believe he's working with Russia and China right now to set this completely up. And to know who's loyal to him, well, I think he needed to create this environment to see where people really stand. See where Tillerson stands, Mattis, Nikki Haley. Because, people will tell you to their face that they're with you, but until you're in a situation and you see their true colors, you know exactly where they stand. So since this incident with Syria and North Korea, we can see where people actually stand right now. Because we see Tillerson, we see Mattis, we see Haley, and we see the rest all talking about war and how we're not going to give in and how we're going to do this. And we see the corporate media going crazy and talking about all of this and how the propaganda continually is churning and churning. Now, in the case of the Carl Vinson and the Ronald Reagan and the Nimitz, well, these ships, we checked on it. We knew how to check on it. They weren't moving. The Carl Vinson, all you had to do is go to the Facebook page and go to the Navy site, and you can see where the ship is located. So when the Pentagon or the White House fed this information to the news media, they just ran with it to push the propaganda. And I think what happened was the information started to come out, and they started to realize they've been duped. So the White House had to have a cover story. And we can see that if this was a bluff, like they're saying, well, it's not very good, because North Korea then would look at this and say, okay, the United States is a complete of bumbling idiots. Now, if this was truly a mix-up, again, this would be the United States is a country of bumbling idiots. They can't even send an aircraft carrier to North Korea. And from all the evidence of Xi Jinping trying to do something in North Korea, because Trump met with him privately in Mar-a-Lago, it's interesting that he met him there, where he could speak to him privately. We can see that things are happening behind the scenes. Now, people say, well, how is he going to drain the swamp? Well, he just exposed everyone's intentions. He just exposed everything. Now, if there is a false flag, all those years of all those executive orders where he can completely take control of the country, where he can basically become a dictator. Hopefully he doesn't. Well, he would have full control. He wouldn't need Congress. He can get rid of them. The deep state, I don't need you. I'm in control. He has control of everything. And all those individuals have been exposed. Because how else would you drain the swamp? What do you think? You're just going to go in there and say, hey, you're going to be fired. You're going to be fired. No, these people, they work behind the curtain. He wouldn't even get that far. He would have been assassinated. So this might be a plan behind the scenes. And he can't tell people. He can't be out there saying, listen, this is what I'm doing. And this is what we're watching. Now, he might be with the deep state. He might be working with them. They might have something on him. And we will know right away. Because with North Korea, with Syria, we will find out very, very quickly. And if this does occur, well, we're all in big trouble. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.